Welcome to yet another Disruption Forum. I'm Basia Rybicka, Consulting Director at Netguru, and I will be moderating the first panel. Today, we're meeting to talk AI and engineering, because 79% of business leaders leverage generative AI. Why? Well, AI can improve business efficiency up to 40% and reduce operational costs by up to 30%. And as much as I would love these words to be my own, that's actually McKinsey and Deloitte. Now, let's check what real-world decision makers and engineering have to say. How did they see the AI-driven gains and the boost in efficiency? But before we jump into software development, let's take one step back to take a look at leadership that boosts efficiency. And why is it that empathetic leaders get results? Now, let me warmly welcome our today's speakers for the first panel. Phil Bennett, engineering manager with over 20 years of experience at Kilo Health, one of the leading digital health and wellness companies globally. Hello, Phil.
Hello. Good afternoon or good morning. I guess it depends where anyone is.
Absolutely. Enver Atabek, head of engineering at Fairmoney, the leading mobile bank for emerging markets. Hi, Enver.
Hello, Barbara.
And Yash Piplani, head of technical product management at Thread, with over 14 years of experience. And Thread is the issuer processing partner. So maybe to kick us off well, I would like first of all to dive into the topic of understanding and implementing empathetic leadership and hear a little bit more about your own experience with it. So do you think you could share how empathetic leadership helped you personally, and then as well what impact it had on teams that you were managing? And maybe let's start with Yash.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Basha. Thanks for the lovely introduction. So, you helped me recollect one of the early days or one of the early conversations I had with one of the leaders. So when I was kind of just started managing people, one of our leaders, my skip manager, had a conversation with me, and I think he quoted something from Maya Angelou, which was, people will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel, right? So that quote kind of stayed with me throughout my career, and I was kind of growing as a manager. I was figuring out my own strengths and weaknesses as a leader, right? And especially when I had different managers in my journey, I realized how being empathetic can actually drive or build a positive work environment. So those were some learnings from me. And personally speaking, today, what I have seen that my empathetic leadership style has often helped me create a psychological safe environment, right? An environment where people are valued, people are heard, and people are empowered. This often has translated for me into an environment where I have seen uh, amazing employee engagement and a higher performance results. So that has been my experience, my journey, and my personal experience today with the empathetic leadership style.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, and it definitely sounds inspiring. The quote that you provided us with. Now, Enver, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, sure. I think Yash mentioned very nicely. On top of it, what I can say is, especially during the maybe achieving a milestone as a company, let's say basically, all things are getting screws, and then those are the actual moments where you go and listen people, and to take that tension a little bit, and then motivate them a little bit, and then they can go this extra mile to finish up that marathon. I would say this will be the biggest examples that I'm getting the most benefit in this kind of leadership or management. Because we as engineering managers or directors, whoever we are working with the people who are using their brain as their biggest tool, right? So, and this brain is very much affected with their emotions, with their daily moods, etc. And therefore, this kind of empathetic method goes a long way for them. And on the opposite, also, when I remember my early times, I remember getting this kind of empathic approach from my manager, and how it actually helped me to boost my motivation and go this extra miles. And I think this is also how you learn to go this direction when you are growing up as a manager.
Thank you. That's definitely an interesting take as well. And Phil, would you like to add anything to that? Is there anything to add to that?
I think there's a couple of things. For me, it's kind of like it's an interesting topic because we're talking about choosing to apply empathetic leadership and be empathetic. But for me, it's never really been a choice. It's just who I am as a person, and I sometimes struggle to not be empathetic in certain situations, and it's a double-edged sword that can cause challenges. But I think what I would say is what people have said about it being increasing performance and stuff like that in the long run is scientifically proven. There's studies that show that where senior leads have showed empathy, it's difficult to measure whether people are empathetic or not, but it's a perception of empathy within an organization of their senior leadership can increase retention. And like there's some dramatic numbers, I can't remember the specific numbers, but something like in an organization where the senior leadership is perceived to be empathetic, 61% of people felt that they could be creative in their work, which is something obviously we need in engineering to be able to find creative solutions. And where there was no empathy shown from senior leadership, only 13% of people felt they could be creative. So like there are studies to show that this has a huge impact on how people work and stuff. And then there's loads of studies to show it's massively helpful for retention and employee engagement and happiness of teams. So if you feel that your lead can understand your situation and where you are and what's going on with you in terms of all sorts of elements. It helps people just worry less about the things that are distracting them from their role.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing a little bit of statistics. It absolutely proves the point in a way, and it leads me as well to the second topic that I wanted to discuss within this team, and this is about misconceptions about empathetic leadership in tech. And what do you think these are? What are the most common misconceptions in the tech industry, and why do they persist still, even with when we know that that empathetic leadership brings results? And Phil, we can start with you.
Sorry, I was gonna jump in anyway. So I think my experience on this has generally been like, as I said, like I haven't chosen to apply empathetic leadership. It's just who I am as a person, and if I do work the way that I want to. And what I've had some struggles with in the past in certain organizations is when things get a little tough and a little tight, and we need to apply pressure on certain individuals and certain teams and stuff, there is always this perception that I'm too soft. Right, so I'm not going to get the results out of people because I ask nicely, and I'm not pushing and applying sort of like I'm using maybe a carrot rather than a stick, which I think I've had a lot of feedback on, and actually, it's always really my favorite thing is that this always comes up as a topic normally early on when I join a company. They're like, oh, maybe Phil, you could be a bit tougher. Like, could you? We really need to get these results. Can we push a little bit more? Like, maybe we need people to work a little bit overtime. Can you ask them to do a little bit of overtime? And then within a few months, people see that actually I don't need, if we're applying empathy and everybody is on the same page and we understand what's going on and everyone can connect, like I don't need to ask those people like to put in the extra mile. They're like, right, we're all in this together. Phil understands my problem, my situation. So I'm going to push that extra mile to just get things over, and it's so much more effective as a tool. But yeah, I've always been told I'm too soft, but I'm not always soft, and then that can surprise people as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree that this is a very common misconception. But then like as you mentioned, empathy brings better results in a way at the end. And Yash, I saw you nodding your head along Phil was answering the question. What would you add to this?
No, absolutely. I completely agree with Phil, right? So one of the misconception is true. Like I personally see like a misconception around empathy being equal to weakness, right? Or empathy meaning weakness. So, but I think Phil actually covered this pretty well. I guess partly the reason for that is because the culture in tech is so pro hustle, right? Where speed and efficiency is valued over anything else. So I think empathy as a soft skill does not seem to be in sync with that culture. Maybe that's where the misconception is coming from. But I think personally, what I see, there's another misconception, and that is something I've heard from my teams in the last several years, which is you are either born empathetic or not, right? So there's a general belief or notion, right, that if you don't have empathy as a skill, you cannot develop that, right? While it's true that there are certain people like Phil to whom empathy comes pretty naturally, right? So they are more attuned to empathy compared to others. But I generally believe that empathy, just like any other skill, with dedicated focus and practice, it can be developed over time, right? You just have to be intentional about it, and that is the key. So I think that's another misconception for me, which is you are either born empathetic or not.
Okay, it's really interesting. Phil,
I would also just like to. Yeah. I want to just add a little thing on this. I don't think empathy is binary. I think it's a scale. So I think it's about moving the scale. But I do agree that the scale can be moved for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I've read some studies saying that early leaders, early managers are usually lower on the scale, and they improve with the experience. So that's probably something that you're referring to as well. And Var, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I totally relate to the guys, especially on this soft comment, definitely. But maybe another misconception from my side, because when I say, let me talk to them, let me talk to him, then we talk to her, etc. What I get a reply, but we need this fast. So sometimes people think that this talking will be slowing down the decision making. But to me, it's like the quite opposite. When you actually give the clear information to the people, if you take your time and understand, how do they feel about this one, their concerns, then actually it makes the decision making more faster and more robust, in my opinion, because then you are not neglecting a concern that might be causing a risk for the project, for the software that you are working on. So now even, I have an example today. The CTO actually asked me, he needed one of the engineering managers from my team. And instead of directly reaching out to him, I need this person because I think he thought I could go and talk to him in a better way. So I had to to have a call and shortly explain the situation, and then he jumped, even though it was his after hours. So I think this is generally helping this kind of a communication with people.
Okay, and that's actually a nice segue to the second part that I wanted to discuss with you. And these are challenges, and communication seems to be one of them. I wanted to talk about strategies that you have in empathetic leadership to overcome such challenges. When it comes to communication issues, which is a common challenge in everyday today work of any team, especially engineering team in a remote setup and etc. What are the most common communication issues within such teams in your experience, Yash?
So most common issues that I have personally encountered, and my experience is largely with companies who have actually scaled some sort of big techs, right? Where we have 1,000, 1,500 engineers, 2,000 engineers. So maybe it's specific, the problem, but the problem that I've seen is the silo mentality, right? So why that happens is because in a product or engineering team, right, there are deep specialization areas where people are kind of deep into the technical side of the things. What happens due to that, this whole focus and deep specialization kind of limits collaboration and also a shared understanding or a knowledge sharing across the team, right? And also with all this remote working becoming a norm these days, I genuinely miss the days when we used to have these water cooler conversations and build those in-person rapport, etc. But remote working is going to be there, right? So but it's only if not dealt rightly, it's only going to compound the challenges. So I think silo mentality is one challenge I see, but as a leader, we can definitely solve these challenges. There are a couple of things that I've tried in the past or in the last 2-3 years that have been working well for me, which is, as a leader, I try to create or foster an environment where every member of the team, right, there's no stupid question or there's no dumb question. Every question in the team or any meeting is encouraged, right? So kind of that opens up the people. That also helps me kind of act as a facilitator to translate or to bridge the gap between the technical and the non-technical space so that everyone is on the same page and is speaking the same language. There's another technique that has kind of really worked well for me is by emphasizing cross collaboration. What I mean by that is, like, a very simple example I can give over here is where, firstly, as a leader, I've always made sure that knowledge sharing session is part of the expectation setting. But at the same time, I've always encouraged, like, engineers themselves should go and present or demo the work that they are doing in the mega demos that we have had in the company or any other forums, right? So that kind of gives them an opportunity that to kind of present their work, right? Also build the trust, add more transparency, and that also kind of opens up the other people in a way that they understand, okay, this is what this person is working on, right? So that kind of, in an empathetic way, that kind of helps the entire team be on the same page and be on the same journey together. So I think these are a couple of techniques that I've used in the last few years that have worked well for me.
Okay, thank you for sharing those. And moving to other challenges that are also, I would say, connected with globalization and connected to how we work, and we work more and more remotely. And I think this will not probably stop. How do you approach the cultural differences in your teams, and what role empathy plays in bridging those gaps, Philip?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic. It's also maybe a slightly dangerous topic to talk about as well. One thing I want to be super clear is that we have to be careful around, when we're talking about cultural differences, be careful around stereotypes and stuff, though it can be useful to look at patterns within different groups and different cultures. We have to be very aware that there are individuals within those groups that stand out and are not necessarily like, so you can't say like, oh, everyone from the UK is this way, has that stiff upper lip mentality and will approach the topic in a certain way. You have to be really careful with that. So I want to prefix that as a topic.
At 5, right?
But I think it's really interesting because I've had some really interesting challenges around this, about working across countries and stuff like that. Like with Kilo, we actually have some of our colleagues that are based in Ukraine, and that's been a really fascinating challenge for me. I mean, it's a horrible challenge, but it's been a fascinating challenge when I come into an organization and I talk to some of my colleagues and some of the people I'm working with. And normally I would approach a lot of topics by trying to think about how I put myself into those scenarios and that environment that they're working in. But I found myself, it's impossible for me to put myself into that. I've not been in an active war zone. I've not been living in an active war zone. So I genuinely can't do that. So I think it's really important to kind of be aware that people are going to have different experiences, and there's going to be different inputs into how they're feeling and how they're going to react to certain things, that even if I was the most empathetic person in the world, I'm still not going to be able to understand. And I think putting and understanding those limitations and not applying a one size fits all approach to this topic is super important, especially as global situations change on a day-to-day basis, and also to consider, you may be in a situation where there are lots of really challenging conflicts going on across the world, and you may actually be in a room where you have, it's not really about talking sides, but two countering opinions and stuff like that, and you have to be very sensitive to that and try and be really cautious of it. So it's a bit of a minefield, but I think being aware of it and not trying to think that you can solve all of these problems, and I'm not going to sit with my Ukrainian friends and say, oh, I understand what you're going through. It's fine. I'm with you. I get it. I can try and relate as much as possible, but there is a limit, because I genuinely can't. I can't put myself in their shoes.
Absolutely, and I think that the realization part is also a part of being empathetic in a way. So thank you for sharing that as well, Phil. And I'm also thinking about some sort of boundaries of empathy, because empathy is crucial. I mean, that's clear, considering your previous answers. But then how do you personally draw the boundary to ensure personal performance and then staying and being empathetic and being able to imagine how it is in somebody's shoes? Enver.
Yeah, so which I was thinking about this one. So yeah, I think there is no like a clear direct answer, but it depends on the environment. However, the ones that are most stood out to me is, first of all, the making exceptions is not really great. Okay, so if you have to introduce some certain tooling for certain individual because of a certain reason, then it should be available to the whole team. Let it be remote working or some the other allowance, etc. This way, people feel more equal. And I think when you're making an empathy a certain person, certain individual, I think you should also make an empathy to the rest of the folks in the team who might have effect. So you should also have an empathy of their feelings if somebody is treated differently. I think you should also take it from that perspective. Another thing that is coming to my mind is the failures. Okay, so everybody can fail, but as long as we are learning it and we are making the organization team are better. But if the same failures are happening without the learnings, I think that there is some kind of a wrong approach there, and then you should take an action. I would say my biggest rule of thumb is coming to the dragging of the team. Are we dragging the team because nobody inside the teams would like to carry extra weight. and then they will lose the motivation. So as long as you don't track the teams, you don't disrupt the teams too much, I think maybe that's the line.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add a quick point to this topic as well in terms of boundaries with empathy. I think one of the things that's worth really considering as a lead, and these topics come up and you might be having difficult conversations, is to understand where your limitations are and when you should involve a professional. Because sometimes it's the right thing to do to refer someone to someone else who has experience with dealing with certain topics that you might be talking about with people. I think that's super key, because you can only tolerate so much as a human being with some topics, and you may make things worse if you're not aware of your limitations.
Very true.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that, Phil. And that brings me in a way to another topic that I wanted to discuss with you, and this is cultivating empathy in your teams and measuring the impact on the dynamics and productivity. And I wanted to discuss fostering some sort of a team spirit within the teams, and what specific strategies you found effective for fostering team spirits, Phil, within your teams.
I may have, and I still need to think about this a bit. In some examples, I may have taken this a little bit to some extremes with this topic, and there might be some people watching who I've put through this experience. But I think there's something very interesting about how therapy works as a technique, and some of the techniques. I'm not suggesting that everyone tries to be a therapist, but there are some tools and techniques that you can pick out of that therapists use. And one of the tools that I've been trying to use and then trying to get other people to use with each other is the miracle question approach. So there's a approach where you ask somebody, what if there is a situation that's difficult, what is if they woke up tomorrow and the problem had gone, what does that look like? And in a couple of places I've actually got individuals within the team to do that with each other, and then you're kind of, as opposed to all of the challenges bubbling up to you, so you have to deal with it, you can actually get team members to start supporting each other on certain topics and trying to build a level of empathy in sort of a network within the team. So I found that really, really effective. You can do it in less extreme ways for sure, but I found that a very interesting an interesting approach. Some people also again, you have to understand other people's limitations, and a lot of people are very uncomfortable with this, and you have to approach it in the right way and understand that people may not react to it, and make sure that they can say no and they can opt out of these kind of exercises if they should wish.
Phil, I'd like to extend that question with a question from the audience, because I feel it's naturally fitable to this particular point. So there's a person that is saying, thanks for a great conversation, and if being empathetic with a team or an individual ever turned bad for you. So I'm wondering if you've had any bad experience with what you mentioned.
Yeah, I had and I've actually spoken about this in conferences and talks about it, so it's not a particular surprise. I had an issue at the beginning of COVID where I was moving into a senior leadership, so like a lead of leads, managing a group when everything was going around. And what happened is all of the emotional labor of these challenges and stuff was bubbling up to me at the top, and I just couldn't cope with it. I was just unable. It overflowed my capacity. And I had to, and this is where it kind of becomes, and that's when I reached out to get therapy on myself and spoke to a therapist, and I kind of like, oh, actually these tools that are being used are potentially cascadable throughout the organization. So yeah, scaling empathy is a really difficult task. And some leads just choose to not. So some leads will, when they get to that kind of scale, will just try and detach themselves from the lower levels of the organization just to be able to deal with it. So they're not dealing with all those things. But yeah, it can, that was a real struggle for me. Like it had a real personal impact. Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's really interesting, the steps that you managed to overcome it. But that's probably a topic for a separate conversation. And now I wanted to discuss about how you're developing empathetic skills within yourself, but then within the team as well. And Yash, what tools or strategies would you recommend for developing such skills?
So I think developing product strategy would have been an easier question, but since we are talking about empathy today, I think the strategy will be pretty simple, right? Which is putting people first. So oftentimes in product engineering, we talk about products, process, platforms, but we often forget the most important P in that mix, which is the people, right? Because people are the ones who are actually doing everything. So I think putting people first is definitely the strategy to go. Couple of tools that I can suggest being using personally is uh, very hands-on in the sense like when I'm having one-on-ones, I try to keep two separate conversations. I like to have one focused conversations on the career goals, but for a regular weekly one-on-ones or the cadence, whatever the cadence is, for those one-on-ones, I would like to keep some time at the beginning for a personal discussion, right? How the well-being is for each of both of us, how we can help each other, right? As leader, as team members, as peers, as colleagues. So making it more personalized, that part of the conversation, and rather than just be making it like tactical and operational or transactional, right? So spending some time forming that connection, knowing about how the other person is feeling and how the other person is doing in life, and then kind of getting to the tactical, the operational task, right? So that's one tool. The other tool that I've often like I would love to use it more, but I'm just having challenges in scaling that tool, which is I see this as a perspective or point of view exercise. What I mean by that, like in product world, we often talk about, or in engineering, we often talk about, for the customer empathy, we need to understand the customers, the personas, what their pain points are, what their challenges are, what their emotions look like through the customer journey, and whatnot. But how often do we replicate this exercise with our team members, right? How often do we create personas for our team members that, hey, Basha, has this background. She has these pain points or mentioned these pain points in my conversations. She's going through these emotions, and how can I help as a leader, right? So that's something I try to do. But again, as I said, I would like to do it more often. It's just a scaling challenges that I've been facing. So I think, yeah, these are a couple of techniques I would recommend, or I've been using, helping me as well.
Thank you, Yash. And the last question that I have is about measuring the impact of empathetic leadership on the team's productivity and well-being. Enver, how would you?
I don't know, the proper answer for that one, Basha, because I'm not, the entirely measuring that. But however, I know the signals. So basically, the company does these surveys, quarterly surveys, and you actually get the result of that one. There are surveys about if your manager cares about you. Do you feel motivated? Do you feel yourself working in the company in 2-3 years? You look at those signals. You look at signals from the feedback that you are getting in the one-on-ones, and also you see if people are speaking up or if they're becoming silent. If they're becoming silent, probably it's not working. But if they are opening up more and more and sharing, especially not only about the work but generally about themselves too, I think those are the signals that these are working. But then if you're not measuring how you can improve, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
If everybody keeps saying they're fine, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, for sharing that as well. And the time is coming up of our panel, and I wanted to thank you very much for this fascinating conversation. I feel like we could indulge in the topic much, much more because it is a huge topic and a lot of items to cover. Thank you very much for today, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, everyone. Phil, Enver.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, I think we are already live. Yeah, I see all the faces. Hello all, nice to see you. My name is Radek Zaleski. I'm a partner at Netguru, and today I will be moderating a conversation about legacy and modernization, how to do it right. With us are Kamala Manju, Jiri Brunslik, and Usama Shama. I hope I pronounced it well. All of the speakers represent very big organizations who I assume have a very big experience with modernizing different software stacks, solutions, platforms. And today I would love to hear the story from the trenches. So the first question I will direct to Kamala, and maybe this is a dumb question, I'm not a technical person, but why should we even modernize software? If it works, why should we bother?
See, it is like when your current home is good, why do you want to get a new home types, right? It is not a dumb question. It is a very valid question, right? It is like one of the very good question. Actually, modernization is like it's a makeover for your current business, right? And currently it is a very competitive environment. Today's environment is like very fast. The technology is like going very, very fast. Like we are talking about upgrading our systems and process, and we are making it faster and also reliable, and also, right, the customer is going to benefit more. It is like current system is working fine, or it worked fine for the business landscape 10 years before, 15 years before, but especially after COVID and so many technology migrations have happened, and technology, the advanced technology things, when we start using it, we will really understand that the customer experience can be much more improved. And also, like the regulatory compliance, the evolving requirements of the regulatory, right, especially in industry like healthcare, fintech, and cybersecurity, it is very often necessity for us. It is not even a luxury, it becomes your necessity to upgrade your systems and process to ensure the compliance. So there are lot more like in the current landscape looks like than leaving your system into your older system, legacy system, which is working just fine for your past need.
So you're mentioning either we want to do this because we want to delight the customer, or we either have to do it because there are some external factors like compliance or other issues that we need to
like
we need to do.
competitive pressure, right? Competitive pressure, right? Everybody else is modernizing, and then if you don't give a certain feature to your customer, then you are like behind, then you lose your customer to another competitor, right?
Yeah.
So the competition pressure, all those things becomes very big factor in modernizing your systems.
So I have a question to Usama. So if you agree on those reasons to modernize, or maybe you want to add something, but for me, the question is, okay, but why now? What should be the decision-making process? Should I do it immediately when I know it, or what should I take into the account before I commit to it?
Yeah, I agree with what Camilla just said. And compliance, I think it is one of the drivers there. We could also consider the risks associated with security vulnerabilities as well. So security, performance, this is the top things that you always think about when you are moving from a legacy software to modernization, or to a more modern software. And why we do it now, I see in many organizations, the digital transformation is could be considered as a part of the key driver for what we need to do for moving from a legacy software into a more modern software. So digital transformation is part of this. Also, if we could consider the costs associated with the legacy softwares that we have. So the current platform or software that we have, it is actually costly to include the on-premises hardware, software, also the license fees, maintenance. So there is a lot of high costs associated with the old language and the framework that we are having. This also could be considered as a part of a driver why we need to transform right now.
Jiri, I have a question for you about this decision-making process, and what are the challenges that might usually happen when you know there's a decision, let's do this, market expect us, right? As Usama said, the time is now. There is a stakeholders decision, greenlit, cost will be achieved in some further or later capacity. But you know what might happen, and if you could tell us about your experiences, that would be great.
From my experience, lots of challenges with modernization. I would maybe name 3 that I ran into the most often. First is, cost and timelines. It is extremely challenging when you have a modernization project to correctly estimate how long it's going to take you and how much it's going to cost you at the beginning. It needs careful approach, careful planning, really take the time in the beginning to align on the goals, align on the KPIs, then figure out what's the best approach, run your RFPs, internal POCs, and really experiment and map out the landscape. And I think people shouldn't underestimate the initial phase of actually coming up with the plan and timelines, and really carefully understand what is the level of investment that the business needs to make, and what's the timeline until the business is going to see the benefits. So that's one. Second, which tends to be very tricky, is the actual migration to the new architecture, because there are a lot of challenges associated with the switchover itself. The legacy systems are typically something that's been built for years or maybe even decades. There's a lot of business logic that's not clearly documented, that's not clearly visible from the surface. And before you do the switchover and move to the new system, you need to make sure that you do proper testing to cover all the potential edge cases, all the potential scenarios. And ideally, you want a smooth transition, right? You don't want your customers to notice that you're migrating to a new system. You don't want to degrade their experience. You don't want to degrade performance, availability. So one should be really careful with the latest phases of the modernization, not to miss any key points. And I would say third one is the cultural change that is needed to successfully execute the modernization, because obviously you have organization full of people who are used to certain type of stack, certain type of software experience. You need to now embrace the culture of learning, and actually, in a lot of times, switching to a new language, new technology stack, new paradigms even. And you need to embrace it, and you need to bring the people on the journey with you. And you also need to manage the transition period from the perspective of you now have 2 systems. You have the shiny new one, which is all exciting and all great. You have the legacy system that somebody will still need to maintain for a long period. So how do you manage that? How do you keep people motivated on both sides? I think it's also something that you should have a good answer for before you embark on the journey.
Maybe I will bring a bit of elephant into the room, but I'm in this business for more than 15 years, I think, like developing the different types of software as a manager, not me developing as a developer. And I have to see a transformation, modernization that fit the initial timeline. Maybe you have better experiences, but maybe I'm managing poorly, or I'm not aware, but I've never seen it. But secondly, this is the most tricky thing. I yet to see a modernization when the end users are initially happy that the new thing is delivered. Do you agree with me?
I think you touched a very sensitive topic, like making an end user happy with the transformation, right? That's because I am so comfortable with my old toy. First is the new toy, whether it is serving purpose, whether it is really I require this new toy. That's the culture comes into picture, right? So as he was talking about culture, it is like we need to sing the same song everywhere, but customer is not going to sing the same song, right? It is like the moment you mess the status quo, when your new software is working fine as long as it's okay, but the moment you miss a status quo which worked for the customer earlier and today it is not working because of your new product, it is going to create a problem. And also another thing is, when you are modernizing, you need to really phase wise you have to approach, and then you need to have a clear plan for back out. So otherwise what will happen is, like, because of the future new modernization you are doing, if you affect the legacy system or legacy status quo, then getting the faith on the modernization project and getting the faith on the people, and not only that, right, your own team will start doubting, are we doing right? So those are some of the things I think we have to be very careful when we are doing the modernization. And you are very right, it is like, in my experience for the past 9 years, worked in multiple system modernization, it is like unknown challenges. You think that, okay, I know how to handle security, I have went and talked about the vendors, and then the vendor lock-in, and then suddenly the budget change, and then management change, COVID comes. It's like different factors, external and internal, affect this timeline.
So it's not only me, right?
Yes, it's not only you. It is like my experience.
I agree as well with that. So modernization is not about only technology shift, if I could say it, but it's also a process change. It's a people change as well. So it's a whole about a change management, and maybe sometimes training or reorientation to get the people involved in the new system, maybe the solution, and where is the adequate time, and maybe training programs that can help to ease this type of transition. So we need to think about modernization not only about shifting from an old technology to a new technology, but what else in the process that need to be changed, what else in the people mind and thinking that they need to do, and also what is the future growth for that, how we can be forward thinking to see how we will be after 3 years, 5 years, 10 years with this type of modernization as well. So all these aspects need to be considered when you are tapping into the modernization.
But Usama, I will be again maybe a bit naive, but we are on the engineering disruption forum. We're discussing engineering horizons. Why engineers like you should be concerned about this cultural thing? Maybe someone else should do it, or is it part of engineering?
It's part of engineering, because engineering is not only about moving the technology, but it's also about what is the process that you need to change, and you are working with people as well. As a leader, as a transformation leader, you are working with people, so you need to consider the people in your equation when you are moving for modernization. So this is why some big organizations, they have some departments, they call it change management or change delivery or whatever, that they are taking all of these type of aspects when they are making a modernization. So it's not becoming an IT initiatives, rather than it's alignment between IT and between business to deliver some value. And this delivering of value, you need to consider all of these triangle points, which is the technology, people, and the process.
Yeah. Very, very true, right? When we are doing engineering, right, my system cannot go live independently, right? The systems are totally tightly coupled to deliver a customer feature, right? So starting from the front end and then back end, everybody is tightly coupled. Even though we say that I can go independently, but testing with them, even if there is no change between the other systems, right? But you need to test with them, you need to inform them that all these times downtime or whatever it is, right? So with culture, if we are not able to communicate very clearly, and also the value, right, my priority of modernization may not be the topmost priority for the other system which is integrated with me. So working with them very closely, and then culture of engaging everybody at the correct time really helps.
Jerry,
I think to add to this topic, I think it's best to take your end customers of your product on the journey with you as early as possible during the modernization. So share prototypes of how the system is going to look after the change. Build mock-ups, wireframes, collect the feedback, and continuously adapt your approach. Keep the approach agile, keep yourself flexible, and as you hear from the customers their feedback, continue iterating, continue evolving it. Don't think that you will get it right on the first attempt just internally without actually speaking to the customers. I think it's also very crucial.
Yeah. To add to that point,
Yep.
right, when you are talking to each of this, your aligned parties, right, you need to know what is in for them. For the customer, it is
Yeah.
customer experience, right? But for the systems in and around you who are integrating, maybe it is a performance is going to improve for them. Maybe the integration is going to improve, or maybe the documentation is going to be very improved for them because the legacy system does not have a bigger good documentation. So you need to really identify the pain point of each of your partners and then able to articulate and communicate and work with them. So that's why, coming back to your first question, culture as an engineering leader, it is very, very important to collaborate and work forward.
But right now we are discussing the happy path. So I asked the question why we should modernize. We have this question answered. Hopefully, we know why now. There is a committee decision. Jiri and you beautifully talked about how we should be doing like checkups involving the end users, making sure about this cultural shift. That's all great. But during the prep call, we've discussed a horror story that, for example, we launched a new system, but the old system is still used by the business. For example, how do you handle this? Now you have to commit into both systems, right? And you have to maintain two systems, or what do you do then?
I think ideally in the beginning, you should get the buy-in from all your stakeholders that they understand the problem that you're trying to solve. You are actually solving a pain point for them, and they should be highly motivated to actually onboard into the new system. That being said, there will always be initial friction. So from my experience, what works really well is for your first couple of customers, really take a white glove approach and be there with them when they are adopting the new system, help them out, even contribute with some of your team members, let them sit with the team adopting the new technology, and let them explain everything, update the documentation based on the learnings, do at least part of the work with them or for them. And I think this will give you lots of super useful feedback, how you can evolve not just the system, but also the supporting documentation and the processes for the customers that will come next. And also, it will help you build a success story. So now you have promoters who will just be able to stand in front of the rest of the organization and say, "Hey, look, we adopted this new system. This is how it improved our KPIs, our metrics," and you will see that the investment makes sense. And then the adoption rate should go higher and higher from there.
Yeah.
So I have a question about those two systems. Should you, when you start the modernization project, should you start with expectation management that the older system or the old ways of doing things will be sunset in a given time frame, and you should try to stick to it? Or is it rather flexible, as on the go you decide what stays, what is still being maintained?
It's like it's not one size fits all, right? It is like there are different approaches we will be doing. Like in my experience, what I have seen is like when we are working on this approaches, a phased approach of sunset plan also we used to, or I have done it to work with it, right? So mostly, right, when we identify security issues in handling the legacy system, the adoption is very faster for your newer system. That is one thing we can identify in your current system. Is there any other security vulnerability issue that if your current users, especially business users, right, we can showcase that. That is one way to identify how to sunset. And then also, right, what are the new features you are going to benefit the end users, that one way you can promote the sunsetting and then start using the new system. So in short, we need to have a sunset plan. And as like Usama was talking about, right, it is like mainly to make sure like my current system is working, and then have a phased approach, and sunset plan really helps. And we cannot on the fly we can make it. Because we are working for a very big modernization system, right? It is like, going back to my example, you are building a new house. You will not build a new house without your plan. You will not move into your new big house without having a plan, right? You plan better and then move your stuff. you box properly, keeping like this goes to kitchen, this goes to my master bedroom, then your moving is very easy, right?
Kamala, this is not how I moved to my new house, but thank you for believing in me.
Yeah, but part of this is also that you can limit the usage of the legacy systems that you have, so that any future use of this type of functionality, they start using the modern one, and gradually you can keep the lights on for the old system for a while, have a decommissioning plan, and try to move it in a gradual way. But this is all also about if you will be developing a new software altogether, because there is also some other strategies that you can do, and we always do in our organizations, because you can't get into just on time. You need to make a lift and shift to the new technology, but sometimes you are making some refactoring to the code that you have, and what I mean here by the refactoring is sometimes you need to do a tidy up to the code and make your code more reusable, transparent. Also make this type of code structure to remove any tech debt associated with all the libraries, with the framework, so that these implies making so you can move gradually by making this type of a factor. Sometimes also you are extending the legacy software that you have by APIs. And what I mean by APIs is that you are serving data to other solution built in a modern type of technologies. And by this approach, allowing you to shift some operations to a separate high-performing platform while still relying on the legacy system as it is. So the legacy system will work as it is. However, you are building some kind of an API layer or a wrapper layer that will communicate with a modern system. So this could be also considered as a transition step or a gradual transformation, if I could say it.
But overall, I think it's important to acknowledge that humans have limited cognitive capacity. So you cannot have 10 migrations running in parallel. You need to work with the concept of what I call innovation tokens. You can invest in modernization of one system and then be in the state where you have new system, legacy system, and you can probably maintain 2, 3, 4 at the same time. But at some point you will really start running into human brain's cognitive limits, and at some point it's going to stop being feasible for people to understand the complexity of the entire ecosystem. So I think it's extremely important to have a timeline and finish those migrations, so that you have limited amount of operational procedures, limited amount of stacks that people can fully understand and comprehend. If you don't drive your migrations and technology innovations over the finish line, and you end up with a super diverse ecosystem, at some point it's gonna explode and it's gonna become completely unmaintainable.
Yeah, totally agree, right? It is like at the end of the day, cost. It is going to be like maintaining 2 systems, and then finding a people to maintain your legacy system. It will become a big challenge. Like it is impossible to manage. And then even when customer support, all those stuff, right? They don't know which system to use when you give them multiple toys to play with, right? So you have to be like very careful in planning this sunsetting the system.
So what was the name for it? Innovation tokens or
innovation tokens?
How much tokens can you have at once in your hand?
Ideally one.
Ideally one.
That's the
boring.
best. That's the best state. Yeah, it's
boring.
It is.
How about you, Kamala? Or how many innovation tokens would you give to your team, or how many can you hold in your hand at once?
I think I will hold more than one.
How many? Give me a number. Gen AI, it's one.
See, it is like the way forward, right? Innovation. It is like people are using Gen AI, people are using cloud computing, people are using peer modeling. It's like there are so many things. Innovation helps you to increase your productivity, right? It is not that one chip I can give them, frankly speaking, right? Earlier, right, we used to sit in one cubicle and work. Even if you are able to put a Scrum team in a collaborating room, that is also an innovative chip for them to increase your productivity, I would say. So it's like multiple things helps.
Usama, how many tokens do you have in your pocket?
Yeah, it's a lot as well. So it's not one size fits all, and also it depends on the complexity of the change itself. So there is many factors that that impact how many tokens that you can have. And part of this is the complexity, is the perception of the people working with you, the perception of your customers as well. So there's many factors that can drive this number.
We have 3 minutes left, or even 2 minutes left. One thing I would like to quickly touch upon this is decisions in terms of technology, and especially what I would call a defense against the new shiny thing that is on the market. I assume there is sometimes a lot of pressure in business, but there is this new platform, new cloud, new Gen AI, new shiny thing to put into the system. But as Jerry mentioned, we might have some few tokens. How do you manage those processes? How do you decide that this technology is, mature enough to be implemented as a core system? What's your thought process here?
Yeah, it's like, go ahead.
Go, Kamala.
Okay.
No.
So it's like when we talk about the tech, right? First of all, your system's adaptability, and then again comes into people, right? When, for example, I will take an example of selecting a database, right? When I am selecting my database for my entire migration, I will be looking about my scalability, reliability, and then availability, and also people learning, and not but the least cost and support from the new system technology, right? So there are multiple things helps you to take a decision based on your data and the data outside the market. Like if I am going to take one particular database or one messaging system as my new migrating system, I need to have a clear data about all these things, like how reliable it is, how I can scale today to next 5 years, and then how fast my team can learn that becomes very important. Because if I have to go and hire all the 10 developers to migrate one new messaging queue, then I don't have that much cost, right? So rather I have to find out little cost effective way where people learning curve is also small but still solves my business and technical queue. So it's not one size fits all. There are multiple factors helps us to take a technical decision, and it is not a one person decision. Again, it is a group discussions and then analysis, and then finally maybe I have the word to decide, but I cannot decide it alone. I have to decide it with multiple data points, working with the different architects and then external vendors, partners. All this comes it like vendor lock-in becomes a bigger issue if when we are taking a decision for this type of migrating technology.
Usama, Jiri would like to chip in.
Yeah, actually, first you need to understand what is the problems that you are solving here. So if you need to make a modernization, what is the problems that you're facing? Maybe the problem is your ability to integrate with a third-party service that you can't scale. So if you mention this as a problem, then you can think about the microservice and how you can utilize microservice in your modernization. If your problem is about scalability, performance, efficiency, then maybe you need to think about the cloud and moving into the cloud. And if your problem is about deployment, how you can automate deployment, so there is a lot of supported tools and mechanisms for DevOps that you can use for have a CI/CD continuous type of deployment. So you need to first think about what is the problem that I need to solve. Then you think about what is market trends that you have and how you can move into market trends that match your costs and your business needs as well.
Jiri, your last.
Yeah, Radek, you mentioned, how do you prevent constantly jumping on the latest technology, the new shiny thing. I think Usama nailed it. It's about defining what the problem is, what you're actually trying to solve, and I think it's a good habit to actually have engineers or engineering teams come up with those proposals in a written and structured form. So outline the goals. Outline what are the different means of solving the problem, what are their pros and cons, and really come up with let's say a business case for why the company should actually invest in this new technology. And it should be very rational. It should be based on the data. It should be based on the business outcomes it is gonna bring you. Shouldn't be an emotional based discussion at all. So I think if you stick to this principle, you are on the right path to invest only in the technology changes that make sense from the business perspective.
Okay. Great, thank you guys again. Great conversation. Kamala, Usama, Jiri, thank you for being with us. To the audience, I think you can freely add more questions to our speakers on LinkedIn. You can find their profiles on our page, and I am pretty sure they have extensive experience they can share with fellow peers. And thank you very much. On to the next conversation. Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, we're back. Hello, everyone. Today, I have this fantastic opportunity to be a host of 3 fantastic guests. Before we go into introduction, I think our topic is about AI and engineering, and we will be talking about how engineering can benefit from AI, how AI influences engineering, and everything down the line. So let's start with a short introduction. Can we start with you, Phil?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Richards. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Contract Network. I've been working in AI and legal and finance for many, many years, and I'm really excited to be here and speak with everybody.
Thank you, Phil. Erica, maybe you can follow.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Erica Rice-Sherpeltz. I'm head of engineering at SourceGraph. We make a AI coding assistant, Cody, and I have been working in that space for about a year now.
Thanks. Alok?
Hello, everybody. I'm Alok Ranjan. I'm an engineering manager at Dropbox. I oversee the storage platform team, and my team focuses on providing interfaces for file and block storage. While we use AI tools in our work, it's not our primary focus. However, I also mentor engineers at an AI-based startup, which keeps me up to date on developments of AI world.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. I think I would like to at least have some kind of a warm-up question and or maybe warm-up topic to discuss. And I think I would like to ask you first how actually it is different to build a software that is enhanced by AI and provides this extra value with the AI to the users compared to the regular SaaS products. Maybe Phil, you would like to start?
Yeah, happy to start. So in this, I think there are many things that are the same. Like we still work on solutions where we test the different approaches. We look at licenses and implementation costs and product fit and productivity tools and those types of things. We read a bunch, we see demos, we talk to our colleagues. But what's different now for me is when we brainstorm what's possible. We see there's a whole set of immediate problems that can now be solved in a new way in terms of whether it's productivity or new features that can be developed. And the implementation of these can be very, very fast. And so while we've only really attacked the immediate set of problems, we're building on these and can build new features and on and on and on. So I'm really excited about the new solutions, but there are still many processes that are somewhat the same to attack them.
Yeah, great. I absolutely agree that the possibilities became somehow endless, I would say, maybe. Alok, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I completely agree with Phil. I wanted to have a take on something which is different in this world, specifically around cost. I feel like when you're building an AI-based solution, the data gathering analysis becomes the main cost driver. Like in a traditional software development, if you have to do a minor adjustment between the output you are expecting versus what you are getting, you would usually only have to tweak something small. However, in AI-based software development, even these small variations can have a profound impact. It can require significant rework, even retraining the entire model, and the cost keeps just piling up. So you have to be conscious of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And Erica?
Yeah, so building on that, I strongly agree with all this, including that a lot is the same. I think software engineering will always have a lot of the boring bits, which I love personally. But I think another thing that's different is the idea of giving up sort of the certainty about what your users are experiencing. And we've been seeing this ever since like recommendation systems, ordered streams, product recommendations became popular. But I think with the generative AI, we're going to see even more of this, where you have to sort of defend against what your own system might produce, not just about what other users might put into it.
That's a very interesting take. Actually, yeah. So yeah, thanks for that. That's really very fine, nice opinion. I think except that by building the software that serves with AI is a bit different. A lot of things is the same, but definitely AI influenced the traditional software engineering. And maybe Erika, you could tell us in few words how that AI impacted your team's productivity.
Yeah. So to start, so we're building an AI coding assistant at SourceGraph, so we use it ourselves. So in some sense, AI has had very direct impact on our productivity, and we actually do see that. It's interesting right now. We see that the most in people who are new to an area or building something greenfield, where I think AI, at least for us, hasn't quite yet broken the bar, is when you see experts in a system working within the system where they're experts, and they're sort of the marginal value of, hey, even if that's not 100% right, at least it points me in the right direction. You know, they're like, I already know the part that's not 100% right. I know the part that's 110% right. But like, we've seen a huge amount of value for that onboarding use case, and not just onboarding to the company, but onboarding to a part of the code you haven't looked at before, as well as that greenfield development. Hey, I just need to write some boilerplate. And those have been both huge productivity areas.
Exactly. A lot of you mentioned the boring parts before, and I think that transformed quite a bit actually. So it helps a lot. Phil, what do you think? How it impacted or transformed the traditional software engineering in your company?
Yeah, I think it's my experience is very similar to Erica's, where we've seen, with either junior engineers or we're entering new areas. When we use the productivity tools, we see 30 to 40% improvements in velocity or those types of things. When it's an expert working in their field, it's marginal. Still helpful, but it's not nearly as huge. But what I've also seen in our organization is we now have a team of analysts that do prompt engineering, and they build algorithms to help go through all of our data. And the way that they attack the data and we use that in the platform has also changed. And so focusing on those types of things is a new piece, where before we would have machine learning and training and test sets and machine and learning and scientists doing that work. But now we have an analyst team that's doing some of that work, and that's been a change for us in the way that we operate.
Yeah, but thank you for that. I absolutely agree. And it's not only about software engineers anymore to build the products faster, maybe with a better quality even. Alec, what do you think? What's your experience with AI and this software engineering process?
I mean, AI has definitely, revolutionized traditional software engineering in our company, and I'm excited to share our transformative journey. We have embraced tools like GitHub Copilot and GPT-based solutions, which have significantly, improved our coding efficiency and design documentation quality. We also have a lot of in-house AI tools, which have streamlined process like narrative writing, OKRs, peer reviews, all of those things. However, the game changer for us has been Dropbox Dash, our flagship AI product. And if you're not familiar with Dropbox Dash, then let me tell you what it is. It's an AI-powered universal search that enhances your productivity across all applications. With machine learning at its core, it learns and evolves alongside with you, continuously improves as you use it. And it just provides you one unified hub where you can search across different types of applications you are running. It helps you efficiently manage your workday. So this has been total revolution for our team, and I would say this has definitely been a game changer for us.
That's fantastic. And what do you think? Maybe we can continue with you a bit. What do you think will the future bring? Because there's a lot of things happening, but will we even need software engineers in a couple of years? What's your take?
Yes, in my opinion, software engineers will still be in demand in coming years. While AI and automation are transforming the industry, they also create new opportunities and challenges that require human expertise, right? For example, AI and machine learning continue to advance, and the demand for skilled software engineers to develop and improve these systems will grow. systems are becoming increasingly complex. So we'll need human expertise to design, integrate, customize these things, right? So, and also for me, maybe I'm biased because I was a software engineer for a long time. We not just only write code, right? We drive innovation, creativity. We are pushing the boundaries of what is possible. So all of these things are still going to exist. So in my opinion, yes, definitely software engineers will still be needed. It's just that the nature of some software engineering tasks will change. That's my take.
Yeah, thank you for that, Erica. What do you think? What will change in a couple of years?
Yeah, I think we'll be moving to higher levels of abstraction, but we'll still keep software engineering. Like people who started in assembly wouldn't call what we do today software engineering. People who were programming before the Web 2.0, everything's APIs that other people own today might call what we do today not software engineering. You're just gluing together Legos other people build, but the discipline has evolved through each of these like higher level of abstraction, and we can build more and more powerful applications. And while I don't know exactly what that will look like for AI, I think we're going to have that same sort of evolution where we're just going to be like, how did people program back in those days when they had to care about all those details?
Yeah, exactly. And Phil, do you have anything to add to the conversation here?
Yeah, I like to use the historical precedents to learn from a little bit, and even outside of software engineering, just as like the spreadsheet, the invention of that didn't eliminate accountants, AI won't eliminate software engineers, right? As I was listening to a podcast just recently about with the inventors of the spreadsheet, and one of the things they said was it was a godsend, but it was also a threat because the computer could do in seconds what could take someone an entire day to do. In fact, the computer was better at it. That sure sounds a lot like what we're doing today with the AI. But just as spreadsheets transformed accounting, but ultimately created more jobs in finance and did those things, I think the AI will do the exact same thing with us. It'll change. No doubt we're going to change. And I'm not exactly certain how it'll change either. I'm not going to try to hazard a prediction of what it'll be like in 10 years. But it will change. But the prediction I will make is that it will grow. Software engineering will grow because of these tools.
Okay, yeah, but before it will grow, I think we will be facing some challenges. I mean, definitely there is some friction with AI. What's on your mind? What is currently the major challenges you face in integrating AI into your team's work? And I would like to ask you, whoever would like to start. Maybe Alok, you would like to start?
Yeah, sure. For this question, let me give you an example from my time mentoring a software engineer who works for an AI startup. That startup was working with a large edtech company, and that edtech company had a lot of SME who were there for content generation. And when this edtech company started integrating these AI tools into their workflow, there was a major pushback from the employees because they thought they are soon going to be replaced. So when I look back at it, I feel this is something that could have happened at any industry, including software companies as well. Right? It was all about change management, like how we are going to integrate AI into existing workflows, because it will disrupt established processes and corporate cultures. Employees may resist adopting new technologies due to fear of job displacement or the steep learning curve associated with AI tools. So effective change management strategies are essential to ensure smooth integration and acceptance of these tools.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Erica, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a classic one, which is hallucinations. Like the quality of these tools is still like not 100% reliable. And I think due to the nature of them, will never be without additional processes to check them. I think we're super fortunate in the domain of code because we can run things. If it doesn't compile, we know it's not right. If the tests don't pass, we know it's not right. But we can actually use the AI to enhance that. So I want to share this anecdote. We had a case study with a customer showing how using a coding assistant helped reduce time spent on this, reduce time spent on that. There was one number that went up. Testing, time spent writing tests, went from 0% to 10%. That is actually, I consider that a huge success story because now, we are using this AI whose outputs aren't reliable to separately generate tests, which aren't 100% reliable, but by fighting them against each other, we can increase the reliability of both. So I think there's a lot of potential to use these ground truth to help prevent hallucinations.
Okay, and Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to second that thought. It's so easy to write a prompt and get a response, but it's so hard to make sure that response is accurate and precise and responsive. People think it's magic, but it's still just a tool. We're implementing algorithms. They're awesome, but they're not magic. And sometimes product-facing folks, myself included, sometimes I just want the magic without dealing with the reality of the algorithms behind it. But especially when the large language models and generative AI are part of this larger analytics system, we have to build with the reality of what these algorithms can do and prepare as best as we can and quick changes for what they will do. But we have to make sure that those responses are accurate. And you've got to build it into these systems with models and capabilities to make sure that the things haven't gone off the rails.
Absolutely. And speaking about the challenges, maybe you have some advice to our audience, how actually, based on your experience, how you would recommend to actually, overcome those challenges? What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, our key approach on this is feedback loops and data models, where we make sure with our analytics team and our large data sets that we work with that we have known touch points, known data models that we can work with that can be both inputs to the models and can also be part of a feedback loop on those models. And when we build that really, really helps keep the accuracy and the responsiveness and keeps the results in line with what we expect to see. And now that takes a lot of work to keep the noise down and a lot of work in building out these feedback loops. But that's what we've found to be successful.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely agree. This is a very important aspect. And Alec, you mentioned that there's a change management challenge in AI adoption. Share some tips how we can make it happen, actually.
Yeah, definitely. One of the important thing to note here is, we need to upskill and reskill employees going through this change, right? Offer training and development programs to acquire these new skills. And the most important thing is communication, like clearly communicate how AI will augment their capability, freeing from their, mundane, low-level tasks and enabling them to focus on high impact tasks. So, it's augmentation, not replacement. Also, something which helps people is building dashboards, visualization of ROIs, like how they're going to get some return of investment on these tools. Also, incentivize, like offer incentives for people who are embracing AI, such as recognition, rewards, promotion, things like that could also help bridge the gap.
Okay. Thank you very much, Erica. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I talked about it a little with testing, but I think there's also a lot to build on what Phil said, like making sure you have the right context that you're providing to the LLM so that it constrains the space that it's looking in the first place. And then, seeing how you can then use those same ground truth to compare to on the outside. So with code, tests are a concrete way to do that. But with everything, like you can always even just do simple things like, make sure the right keywords are there and flag things for further review when you see something suspicious, the scoring sort of systems, or you can even get into LLMs critiquing themselves, which doesn't seem like it should work, but it kind of does.
Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting. And let's maybe talk about future a bit. And I think we touched the future a bit, but I'm very interested what are the broader implications of AI in software development for the tech industry. What are other areas that we are maybe not fully aware it impacts in our daily work? And maybe Phil, you would like to start?
Yeah, I'd like to. Happy to. So I worked in analytics at one of the huge banks during the financial crisis and the Great Recession that started in 2007. And so this may be somewhat controversial, but I think a major reason the financial crisis occurred was because we were so confident in our machine learning models. We believed our models were better than anyone else's, and we trusted their buy and sell signals until we basically ran off a cliff. In the current situation, I'm not worried about like sentient AI taking over the world or any of those types of things. But what I am really concerned about is us having too much confidence in these systems, and we will follow them off of a cliff. So I pray that we learn the lesson from 15 years ago, and that we have the collective wisdom to not follow this off a cliff. We should use the amazing capabilities we have, but be smart and careful with the responses that we have.
Okay, yeah, absolutely agree. Alok, do you have anything to add here?
I feel like, the integration of AI tools into engineering teams significantly enhance productivity and code quality by automating, these routine tasks, code generation, testing, all of these things. This not only speeds up development cycles, but also frees up engineers to tackle more complex challenges, fostering innovations. However, this also presents challenges, right? AI presents challenges. Like there is a risk of over-reliance on these tools, which could lead to a decline in fundamental engineering skills if not managed properly. Integrating AI into existing workflows pose its own set of challenges and may feel resistance from the team members who are wary of new technologies or concerned about job security. Furthermore, I feel like AI tools raise important concerns regarding security, data privacy, and the potential perpetuation of biases if not carefully monitored. So it's crucial that these tools are used ethically with a clear focus on enhancing human capability rather than replacing them. So in conclusion, while AI in engineering promises improved efficiency and innovation, it requires careful implementation and management to fully realize its benefit and mitigate potential risk. Balancing the use of AI with ongoing skill development and some ethical consideration is key to successfully integrating into engineering workflows, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Erica, you actually may see this in your work daily, right? Because of what you do. Is there anything else we should think about?
Yeah, I think it's really going to be interesting to see the nature of how we interact with these tools change. So today it's mostly very explicit, I'm doing something right now and I see an autocomplete result, or I go to a chat box, or I do a search and I get the right set of results. And that's all very valuable. And it's great because you, the human, are in the loop right there to validate the results. I think we're going to move more and more to things that are happening in the background. The term agent is sometimes used, sometimes overused, but like this idea that you're going to have these processes that are running that aren't necessarily there right when you need them. And I think that will be incredibly valuable for like, hey, you should care about this. Here's something interesting over there. Oh, I kind of did this thing over here. But that also just means that it's increasing the surface area that much more, that where you need to worry about all these issues of quality and verifiability and making sure that you understand what's really going on. So I think there's going to be huge productivity gains from that ability to sort of get some extra hands, but also that, you're going to have to pay attention to what those hands are doing.
Yeah, so the daily work will change a bit from I need to know, then I need to control, understand, and like maybe interact more with what I'm doing actually with those tools. So yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we don't have any question from the audience, and we're running out of time. So right now, I would like to thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. And,
Thank you.
Thank you to the audience as well to be with us. And I think you can be, our audience can interact with you on LinkedIn, right? Ask you some questions if they didn't right now. So yeah, thank you very much and see you around. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Jacek.
Hi, Mary. Hello, good to see you.
Nice to see you here and great to talk to you about low-code solutions. Before we dive straight into the topic, I think it makes sense that you give us an idea of what you do at Netguru.
Sure. So I'm responsible for leading the low-code/no-code department at Netguru. So my job is to deliver more efficient ways of building software and applications to our clients.
Why are you into low code in the first place?
Oh, it started over 10 years ago. I didn't think I can learn programming. Basically, I thought it's too complicated, so I was seeking different, more simpler solutions. Down the line, I also learned programming, but now I think low code is the way to go.
It's pretty revolutionary. Listen, a majority, I think we can say that a majority of decision makers at larger organizations that we talk to struggle with legacy modernization, struggle with old systems, outdated technology. And we've just heard a whole panel on the topic. How does low code come into the picture?
Great question. Actually, I've been thinking about it, and I realized that low-code applications are generally less prone to that risk, to becoming legacy applications. And I did a backward analysis, digging into some past projects, and my conclusion is that there are a few reasons for that. And number one is that upgrading low-code solutions is generally faster. So it's probably another broad topic to explain why low-code is faster, but the truth is that your developers can accomplish this goal of upgrading the application in much shorter time. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that your developers have more time to do it. So because they deal with the backlog faster, they can look back and plan and upgrade the application. And lastly, you also get some extra upgrades out of the box. So there are some things that pushes you toward new major version, but you also get some extra benefits with it. So it might be improved performance, it might be improved UI, but as long as you stick to the latest release of the local platform, you get some extra features, extra benefits.
So I'm hearing efficiency, I'm hearing speed, and it sounds super cool. But then again, I'm not surrounded by low code just yet. So there must be some concerns across the industry. There must be some questions that we should answer. I mean, what are the top concerns that you come across?
Well, I would say vendor lock-in is at the top of the list. Obviously, this is the one that we discuss the most with the clients and engineers. And I think that the best answer is a metaphor for a modern production line. So to automate production and improve quality, increase capacity, you need vendor lock-in, basically. And you either accept it or slowly fall behind those who did. And if you don't do it, then you need to compensate in other areas of your business, right? So while vendor lock-in is a reality in many areas of our businesses, the key is to select a trusted vendor, right? The most reliable vendor. And the other common concern is like, oh no, it's another tool to manage. And we already have, like, each large company have dozens of different platforms, applications to handle. But first, low-code helps unify and consolidate tech stacks. And instead of dozens of different programming languages, frameworks, databases, you have one, often two, sometimes even three tools with user-friendly interface. And the second is that yes, it's a new tool to manage, but sometimes we combine a bunch of tools and simplify by creating a new abstraction layer, like low-code in this case. And I think it's a natural direction to follow.
One tool to rule them all.
That's the ultimate goal, yes.
Listen, well, obviously cost is a big decision factor. So let's talk low-code and cost.
Well, the good thing is that you can probably cover the cost of licenses from the pure benefit of better speed to market. But I think there's more than that. We tend to forget that enterprise applications are much more than functional requirements. There is governance, we have security, like deployment, compliance, code transparency for easy handover. Those are things that generate additional costs, right? So some low-code platforms, good low-code platforms, will help you to cut costs in these areas as well. So a comprehensive low-code platform does not only replaces a single programming language or framework, but it helps you to deal with ideation phase, planning, deployment, monitoring of the application. So basically the whole software development lifecycle.
You have taken part in a couple of implementation projects, I'm guessing. I'm wondering about more than a couple. I'm wondering about the implementation path itself. If our viewers are thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, but where do I start? How do I strategize around it? What would you say?
Well, it's simple if you just want to build a single application. But for me, I think we should start from we should start with a question of what it means to do it right and what's the ultimate goal. Because for me, it's about successfully deploying a new strategic capability to build applications in a more secure way, build more reliable applications, and to do it faster. So you do this by empowering the whole organization and introducing a new development culture. So my advice would be to start small, build a proof of value, and of course, celebrate successes, look back and assess how much you accomplished on all fronts. And of course, open the platform for enthusiasts inside your organization. And of course, you need to find experts you can lean on to support them and ensure high quality from day one. It can be through the center of excellence that you will establish inside of your organization, but it's crucial. Is it hard? Probably yes, but if you ask me whether it's worth it, I would say ask Schwarz IT, which developed over 100 different applications, 75% faster on average. So I think that's quite impressive result.
75% increase in speed.
Yes.
Yeah, that
exactly.
speaks for itself. Great. Well, limitations then, because it sounds too good. What are the limitations?
And that's not an easy question. I wouldn't build a game on a local platform, that's for sure, or an Uber app. And that's for a few reasons. Licensing fee. You probably also need top performance for low resource utilization to cut costs in terms of infrastructure. You also need top-notch UX with apps like Uber and fancy UI, and every millisecond matters. So, but I see more and more examples of clients pushing the boundaries regarding the scaling and functionality of modern low-code apps. So the limits exist for sure, but to be honest, I'm no longer sure where the red line is in this moment. So, and also I think it's important to mention that high code doesn't inherently guarantee better performance, security, or flexibility. And it all comes at significant cost, right? And goals are sometimes achievable only on paper. But if you include the human factor, then you may fail even with the best programming language and with the highest level of control you can have over your software.
How does a business assess whether what they're planning on building is doable with low code or scalable with low code? And how does a business decision maker know in which direction of automation to go to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, choosing the right platform might be challenging, and it's a key point above all we mentioned. It's a complex process. You have many angles from which you have to assess the solution. But actually, I have an assessment matrix I can share if anyone is interested. So I have many different points I look at when assessing platform. And there are things like governance, deployment options we have, licensing model, and all that thing. So I'll be happy to share it with you if you're interested.
Looking at the time, and unfortunately, we need to wrap up.
Sure.
Fantastic insights. Thanks a lot. And
Thanks,
we're leaving the stage to Kamil Puk and his guests. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello, hello.
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 Hi. I think we're live. Oh, and the cat is live with us. Thanks. So we meet for the last session of today, and I'm very happy to host it with you. Let me just set up the the environment over here and say that today we meet because the pace of development and the pace of software development accelerates. We have so many new tools, new frameworks available, and cooperation models that just pop out of nowhere. So building stuff gets faster and faster, and this is an ongoing process for years now. I digged into some theory, and I figured out, in 1909, Frederick Taylor, he made his famous Principles of Scientific Development, his book, his major study, and advocated for not only pushing, well, actually to stop pushing people harder to do more work, but instead to focus on their environment, to focus on how do we train people, what kind of setting do we give them to work in, and to make it more optimized and simplified. And I think some of his ideas are still alive, but a lot has changed over 100 and more years in various industries. So today I'd love to dig with you into what does it mean to build a productive environment, to build a productive team in 2024. Also, what tempers it, what distracts team from being productive. And I'm very happy to have three amazing guests today, each of you an expert in the field. So please allow me to welcome you, and I'll give the mic to you directly. Today with us is Aliona Gurszczenkova, who is head of engineering at Volt. We have Krzysztof Raz, head of engineering at the 360 Bank, and Brent Mills, Director of Engineering Development Experience at NERSA. So welcome, and let me start with asking you, the question about wording and principles. So what does it mean to be a productive individual today? What does it constitute to be one? And what does it constitute to have a productive team? And I'd love to hear from Aliona first, because we had a very short discussion a couple of days ago, and I'm super happy to hear. I'm super curious to hear what you think of it.
Thank you, and nice to be here. Well, for me, productive individual is a person who doesn't wait. So it's a person who is always looking what to do. So they may not exactly know what to do next, but they keep looking because they're interested in what they're doing. And it means that the person has a high level of self-actualization. So, they are looking for the gaps, they understand the impact they can bring to the business, and they are choosing what to do on their own. And of course, it also really matters that person understands the big picture and able to connect what they are doing to it. So very rounded experts.
Okay, cool, thanks. Krzysztof, would you like to add something over here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kamil, and actually welcome everyone. To me, a productive team is a team that brings value, business value, because ultimately, and we often forget about it, technology is here to solve business problems. It's not for fun. It's not for tinkering in the sandbox. Ultimately, a team is here to solve business problems. So to me, a productive team does exactly that. So they increment the product. They bring a value to the business, and the business is happy. Simple as it is. So it may be a big feature, maybe a small feature, whatever it is. It can be 1,000 lines of code, 10 lines of code, but ultimately the business needs to be there. The business value needs to be there.
So I guess it resonates also with what Aliona said, that they need to see a big picture, and they need to understand how the business works. Do you have some verified methods how to open people's eyes towards this bigger picture if they're not naturally driven to it?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, if you instill a strong engineering culture based on values such as trust, autonomy, and ownership, the key here is ownership. So if the team owns what they build from end to end, so not only build but also afterwards, after shipping it, you can actually see the value they deliver, because their work is not development only, their work is not testing only. They think holistically. So this is the most important part to have it, because of course we may talk about tools, metrics, and I guess we're gonna talk about it later. but this is like an absolute fundament, like absolute basis of what we are talking about right now.
I think I would build on top of you, and I would say that to own something, you need to create this something. And in my teams, I have always been putting a lot of emphasis on brainstormings. We always have brainstormings, what to do about things. And people in my teams, they are using the product, so they're actual users, and they talk to friends, and they always have so many ideas. I always create these mirror boards, and I have to just extend and extend them because people will have so many ideas.
Yeah, that's nice. I especially like the comfort of being a user of the app that you create. I think it gives a special kind of satisfaction, but also a special kind of attention to detail then, right? Brent, I would like to ask you about something, because when we talked a couple of days ago, you struck me as a person who knows how to take a couple of well-performing individuals, but forge them into an awesomely performing team. So I want to ask you, what's the process like? You take some talented, motivated people, but sometimes the theory says this is just a group of people. It takes something to build a team out of it. So what's the secret ingredient?
Yeah, I think there's a few things there. One is I find that improving engagement generally is really the key, finding ways to keep the team engaged. Because otherwise, it's all too easy to fall back to, I have my queue of tickets. I'm not actually improving the business value. I'm not improving anything other than handling tasks that were handed to me. And that becomes a bit of a trap, because then you get overwhelmed with that work and you're not able to assist others, and you may become a burden to others at the same time. One of the things that I like to use here a lot is cultures of coaching and mentoring, where we will frequently pair up individuals, one more senior with one more junior, in order to ensure that any one junior, we're training them not just what to do, but also how to think about a problem and approach it, how to think about the impact they have on other teams, on customers, on the company and the product. I also really like the idea of tying this then to development plans and saying, as you grow in your career, one of the things we expect is that you will proactively reach out, not just inside your team, but across teams, looking for those opportunities to coach and mentor more junior engineers. And this really is one that it helps build that engagement, it helps build cohesion, and it provides career growth opportunities for those newer engineers, which then really makes them engage more with the rest of the team. I've always found this tends to really bring out a lot of fresh ideas.
Yeah, I can agree a lot. I'm also a career coach as a side gig, and I'm introducing coaching in every place where I come. So basically now I'm teaching my team leads how to do coaching for their team members, and I also coach my team members. I think we put more emphasis on coaching here because it gives a bit better results. Like, with coaching, you trust the person that they know what they're doing, and try to abstract yourself, because sometimes we know good answer, like what they should be doing, but we don't hire these people for fun. Like, we are hiring them because they're better than us. And that's when you coach somebody, you help them to come to the decision or solution themselves with their own capacity. And especially group coaching works as well, because of course it's more people at the same time. And of course we also do mentoring company-wide, and that's also a good tool.
Please allow me to disagree a little bit. While I do agree with you guys, with Aliana and with Brent on the fundamentals of the basis, because I also do kind of same thing, but I do not think about myself as a psychologist. I'm a simple engineer, so I would not try coaching on anyone. But what I do is mentoring. So even at my current organization, which is the 360 Bank in Saudi Arabia, I have I have very strong technology team, yet still I am working with them in elevating their leadership skills. So I come as someone with a bigger experience, so I I know the answers, as Ariana said. I know where they should go, and I do mentor them. So that's the only difference that I would say on my side.
Yeah, I guess when we discussed it, it was also, about separating mentoring and coaching, because as a leader, you need to know where to use what. Yeah.
Sure.
So I agree with you. I also sometimes mentor people when I want them to get the skill. Yeah.
And I'll say that to that same point, there's many times when I will trade back and forth between the two based on urgency or delicacy of a particular challenge. The core benefit really remains, though. It's that relationship building. It gives these people someone else in their circle they can come to for support, advice, assistance. The main thing we're getting away from there is this feeling of being adrift on your own and then struggling in a circle, trying to figure out, how do I solve this problem, wasting your time and your energy, getting frustrated, and then disconnecting.
Yeah, and I guess I prefer coaching myself because it's more about being equal with somebody. And that's what we are trying also to build, about being equal and taking, responsibility for your decisions.
What does it take to start working like this in an organization? Is it easy today we have, in most modern organizations, we have quite capable leadership teams. Is it easy to employ coaching and mentoring as part of everyday leadership toolbox in organizations in your experience?
Well, I'm from Finland, so that has been very easy, actually. People always get excited that I have this coaching experience. They want me to promote it in the company. So yes, it was relatively easy, and it's also easy to study. There's basics of coaching for leadership and so on. What about others?
I've had a mixture of experiences. I've worked at some companies where not only was it very easy to adopt coaching, but they encouraged it. They helped us set up training programs for new coaches and make sure that we actually had a pipeline to churn out people who were well prepared for the role of coach and mentor. But I've worked at other places where either leadership was not on board with the idea, and we had to show business value behind it. We had to show how this would impact net revenue, because we are effectively losing an hour of time or 30 minutes of time a week to talking to people. But I've also had other organizations where leadership is fully on board, everyone's ready to go, but the psychological safety wasn't there. And as a result, our engineers wouldn't fully engage. They did not trust that they could set down tasks for that 30 minutes in the hope of then speeding up later. It was this idea of, if I don't do this today, I might get in trouble tomorrow. And that's the big challenge to fight there.
Thank you. In my case, it was also fairly easy, because usually people are receptive to getting some knowledge, right? People should be curious, because if they are not, we have a different problem, which is outside of this conversation, right? They should probably not be even there. But the way I do it is, hey, I ultimately have one-to-ones with all my direct reports. So this is up to me or up to us, what we do in those one-to-ones. So the way I introduced it was, I simply asked, hey, I can see we could cover this, and that in our sessions next week, 2 weeks from now. What do you feel about it? So I did not say per se it's going to be a mentoring. I just laid out a plan. So let's talk about thing A next week, thing B 2 weeks from now, and so on. And 100% cases, people were like, oh yeah, I would love to learn about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's have a structure around our one-to-ones. So with that, it became later official. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess if it's possible to explain the company why you're doing coaching, which is always about competence development of employees, of finding authentic career, of combining your values and values of your company and your opportunities there, it's always beneficial for the company.
Yeah. It is. And I think, Christoph, you hit on something very important here, which is, personally, I have never met an engineer who wants to build a bad product or just sit back on their laurels. But it's kind of approaching your workshop or workbench at the end of the day after a bunch of projects. It's so busy and so full, it's overwhelming. So breaking it down for people, helping them see, we'll start with this task today or this topic today, and then at our next one-on-one, we'll advance. That can be really key for them.
Cool. Thanks. In the meantime, there's one comment and question from our audience, and I strongly encourage for more. It's a rare opportunity to shoot a question towards those three great leaders. Barbara is asking, what are the common misconceptions of coaching and mentoring that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
I think for me, it would be at first maybe sometimes misunderstanding of people who are coachy, like what is happening, because sometimes people are expecting me to tell them what to do and what kind of decisions to make. I think it's like experience of each coach mostly.
That's been my experience as well. It's confusion of coaching versus mentoring first, but then coaching and mentoring generally versus training. People think they'll come in and we'll just tell them the answer, which is not the intent.
Plus one to what Brent just said, because I don't do coaching, I do only mentoring. But even with mentoring, people sometimes expect like it's going to be a lecture. Like I come in and here is all the knowledge, blah blah blah. It's not the way mentoring works, right?
Yeah.
And I think it also sets an important tone for us as leaders. We have to wear different hats for different occasions and with different requirements and different needs of our teams at different times, right? So sometimes it's training, sometimes it's mentoring, maybe sometimes it's coaching if we are able to. I want to maybe open the small Pandora box next, but I'm curious about measurements of performance and measurements of productivity, because it's a hot topic all over the industry for years now. On one hand, people say you can't improve what you don't measure. On the other hand, they say if you make a metric a goal, it stops to be a good metric, right? And good measure. So I would like to know what's your approach? What is possible to measure? Is it possible to measure productivity in a fair and supportive way? How do you do it?
I have had great success with using OKRs, where we will set company-wide objectives and then organization-wide objectives. That way it's mapped to a challenge we're facing at that time. And it has very little to do with tickets delivered, lines of code, PRs reviewed, things that can be mapped back directly to an individual. And in this way, we can measure the productivity of an overall team or organization to deliver on a business challenge without as much risk of it becoming punitive. Because that's what I've seen oftentimes with performance metrics is, hey, this engineer did not deliver as many PRs as that one. Let's look at why. Maybe they delivered more value, maybe they didn't, but that is a different question than the number of PRs they delivered.
Let me build on this, because actually, Brent, you touched on a very important topic, which is the famous McKinsey study, an article from the past year. And in the study, they say there are 3 levels of productivity. The individual one, which I believe it's completely not measurable, because you can't judge, you can't measure the productivity by number of lines produced, number of commits, as Brent said, completely full agree. But on the higher level, you have a team productivity. So this is something you can actually measure, and for that nicely come, for example, DORA metrics or SPACE metrics. And the last one, that Brent talked about, the system level. And I use the same. For the system level, like the entire organization, we also use OKRs, because ultimately, this is a business-driven organization, right? So with that, I think we can assess our performance against our goals.
Yeah, I would go. We use OKRs quite slightly, but we don't have deadlines. We don't do estimates. Basically, we try to create a stress-free environment where people can care about what they're doing. And this is my 5th company right now, and I see great results. Like, I see that people not being in a hurry and producing high quality results. And I can also see it, like we are developing a feature and we are on a stage of like first iteration, and people understand it doesn't work. And we have time to go and rethink how we want to do it. So we are not releasing anything. So we only release when we are proud, and that's why we don't have any deadlines. And I was thinking now for a few days how we actually measure this, and I guess we do look at the roadmaps that we plan together with the team, what we want to achieve in the next half a year, and then we just see what we achieved. And that also doesn't measure always, because sometimes we pivot and we understand that this is more important. So I guess no measuring that much, because we don't want stress.
Cool. Yeah, that's an unorthodox approach, I would say.
It's interesting, though. That actually fits very nicely with an example from my own past, where we had a team that very high-performing individuals, but as a team, we weren't often able to deliver, certainly not what we wanted to in terms of impact. Instead, we would deliver on a backlog, but it was slow. Everything had a very long life to it. So our standard deviation on time to resolve for issues, I think it was 27 days at the start of this. And we found that one of the best things we could do was get rid of a lot of our measurements. And we went toward more of that OKR model, where we're looking at what is the business value we are delivering, and then how can we avoid that hockey sticking? How can we do gradual rollouts and get there as quickly as possible? In this case, for us, it manifested as that shift, plus going from Scrum and getting rid of all of the rituals toward more of a Kanban approach. There was a lot that went into it, but the standard deviation dropped over a 4-week window down to 2 days from that 27 at the start. And the performance really improved for that team in terms of what they delivered just by reducing what we were measuring.
Yeah, cool. That's an inspiring story. I remember when I joined one team, it was very early. This team was very capable individuals, but not a team matured as a whole yet. And we were working with an agile coach who was a very inspiring person. And the only metric that he advised us to use in the very beginning was just happiness index. And this was the only thing we were keeping track for, I think, 3 or 4 sprints. He only wanted to know, are you guys happy with what you do? And are you proud of what you do? And just change your work in a way that will make you more proud and more satisfied, because great results will just appear as a result of great work.
Yeah, I agree so much. And the job satisfaction actually is something we measure a lot. And we keep an eye. We have with leaders, we talk about it all the time and look at it. And it's so true that happiness would be so different for the teams. One of my teams, for example, we implemented 3 days with no meetings. So it's completely days when no dailies, nothing, only no meetings if they want to meet between each other, but nothing scheduled. And the other teams, they said 1 day is enough for us because we want to talk and we want to, discuss things together and see each other. Yeah. So it takes a lot.
So maybe let's. I would like to ask you about some extremes, because slow, and also just a shout out to our audience. We're slowly moving towards the end of our panel in a couple of minutes. So if you have some questions, that was great time to post them so we can still weave them in. And I would like to ask you about some extremes. I'm curious, in your perspective, what are the companies out there that you know that are pushing the envelope further? They're discovering new ways of productivity, either by, I think there are 2 ends of the spectrum. So one, for example, probably might be Amazon, which is famous for being very rigidly measured, executed, and performance is one of the key factors of success as an individual in the company. On the other hand, we have companies that have much more laid back concept, but still are driving incredible product towards the market. So I'm curious, what are the brands, what are the methods that exist on the market that are inspiring, maybe a bit too crazy for your taste or for your current organization, but something we could dig into later as well and read on our own time?
Sure. So first of all, I think that what works there does not necessarily need to work here. So let's not copy Amazon culture because it is Amazon's culture, right? But of course, we can take, item A, item B from them if we feel like it could bring value in our company. That's like a general statement. But to answer your question, Camille, it's from my experience. It's my experience at Fandom, a Silicon Valley-based company who also has a quite engineering big team in Poland. So this is a team. This is the best team I ever had, and let me tell you why. Because the ownership was lived and breathed by them. So I had a challenge to get them out of the office because they still wanted, let me finish this thing. Let me just do this one more comment. Come on, guys. Tomorrow is also day. Just go home, right? So with that high culture, that we're able to achieve, like, I'm sure the peak of the performance. Like they hadn't need to be motivated, like nothing like this, and they adopted the processes and tools that work best for them. But again, it is something that you can achieve only in a very mature and high engineering cultures.
I think there are two things you said there that really resonate with me. One is we can't copy paste. There is no one size fits all solution.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Google's 20% rule, and I've tried to implement that in one way or another. Some places it takes, other places I see engineers just take that 20% of time and deep dive on the problem they were already working on. So you get mixed results. But I will point out one of my past roles over at Wayfair, we had a really great improvement just from investing in the teams. And I think it goes, Christoph, to what you were saying around its engagement at the end of the day. It's encouraging those teams to engage with the company values, with the company product, with the teams themselves. We were able to drive that engagement by giving them career growth opportunities in the form of training and certification. In this case, I'm thinking back to a team of SREs who we got them Golang training, we got them Python training and Google Cloud certifications, and then just letting them have some freedom to develop something new. Kind of what we've all said of no engineer wants to do something boring or deliver a bad product. By giving them a reasonable workload and giving them enough flexibility and freedom, we saw these teams go out and build a really impressive platform as a service offering that took their entire old roles, automated it away, and ended up servicing 4,000 engineers daily. That's something you would never expect from such a small team to start.
Yeah, I guess when we have a new person on the team, on any of the team, we always tell them publicly that if you noticed in your previous company that something really worked well, bring it here. Let's try it out. Let's have a 6 weeks, trying period, and then decide if we keep it. And we got so many like good processes out of that, bad as well, that didn't work as the guy said, because it didn't fit. But we got so many good things, and it's good to learn from others.
Thanks. That's inspiring and that's nice. And I think what strikes me maybe is like a small connection to the beginning of my introduction, that in 1909 Taylor said, stop pushing people that hard, just design better working environment. Of course, also what he meant was kind of deprive people of their ability to choose how they want to perform work. He was a strong believer of just designing work for people. Today we are kind of far away from this. We give more freedom. We want to give more freedom, more autonomy, more ownership. And I think also maybe so to finish our discussion with one last remark. I remember having a few conversations back in the day with some agile coaches or Scrum masters about how Scrum maybe is a prescriptive framework, but how it was created and described in 2001 by a very specific group of people, by people with huge agency, huge feeling of ownership, great experience, and then over the years, somehow we tried to force less experienced juniorish teams to adopt this framework and have awesome results with it. So I'm curious, do you have some experiences or some ideas? How do you search for people that will make a great team together? What's your idea for a recipe for a great team upon maybe recruiting the team or designing the team to make sure that it's successful, diverse, provides satisfaction to work with?
I think one thing you want to look for is within the team complementary skill sets and complementary personalities. By that I mean not everyone can be that extremely extroverted JavaScript front-end engineer. You're going to need someone with slightly different skill sets at a different level. And if you have people who are extremely extroverted, you might want someone who's a little more reserved sometimes, just so that meetings don't quickly become everyone chattering at the same time, for instance, or so that if that reserved person has a good idea, they can build that relationship with the extroverted person to bring it out to the forefront, and they don't need to put themselves in an uncomfortable situation.
In Volt, I really enjoy the process of recruiting. There we have 2 interviews at the very beginning and the last one, which is solely soft skills. So basically our first round is just soft skills, 1.5 hours of soft skills. And it's great because there you can see if the person has the ownership. Like you can hear it from the words that they say, that, they took initiative here, they led it there. As a junior, they did this and that project. And, the question, of course, are very easy. It's like, what is a project you're proud of, or this kind of things, and you will see if it's a prepared answer or if it's not. And then of course if you start with contextual question, you will get much more information from it, and that's usually what we try to do. And it was a good point before me that it's good to see like what you're missing in the team, and good to understand that from a character, from technical perspective as well.
Cool, thanks.
I agree, just +1 to what was already said, but let me give you my perspective. So in general, I lead technical teams. So what I'm looking for, I'm not looking for developers, I'm not looking for DevOps, I'm not looking for QAs, I'm looking for engineers, for people who can solve problems. I don't care about the education, past experience. If they can solve the problem, that's fine. So this is like a general statement, but also what Aliona said, and also +1 to this, is I always do have, I call it a cultural fit assessment. So half an hour conversation with the candidate at the very end, like just to see, understand the motivation and the values, of course, as much as I can understand those in such a short time, but to feel like if there is a, this chemistry between the company and the candidate. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
I would even add to that my best hires, after 10 minutes of that interview, I realize I want that person, and they turn out really good. Like you see the drive if person has it very, like almost immediately.
Absolutely. I know we are running out of time, but let me just add to this, Aliona. This is called a airport test. So if you can sit someone next to someone in the airport and have a conversation for half an hour or 10 minutes, and it goes on smoothly, yes, you want to work with this person. If not, why should you? Yeah.
I love that. I used to call that the road trip, but it's the same idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. And I have to say, if someone asked me, like, if I felt comfortable today leading a conversation with you today, I would say yes, absolutely. Half an hour was just the bare minimum. I think we could just sit here and chat for a longer time. Unfortunately, our time is up, so I'll steer towards the end of this session. But I have to say, when we met last week for a brief introduction, I said, hey, let me try to speak as little as possible. And it was absolutely no effort. You guys are amazing. You led the discussion on your own, topics flowing from person to person. Thank you for that. Thank you for great insights and great advice to our audience. And since this session is also the one concluding our day today, I want to take the opportunity and thank our audience today. Thank all the participants today, and also the organizing team for making this event happen. Thanks, you all contributed to something wonderful today, I think.
Thank
you. Have a great day or afternoon or night, wherever you are. Stay safe. See you next time.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Pleasure.
Bye-bye.